I was getting some blood drawn the other day in preparation for a procedure. They always call it a procedure um, that I'm having. It's a cardiac procedure, having this coming Monday. Um, Today, as I'm recording this, is Wednesday, July 15th. Um, and in preparation for that, they wanted to do some blood work. So I was having my blood drawn, and the uh, phlebotomist and I were chatting, and I said something about um, that I had worked for some years for the same healthcare system that she works for now. And I said, it's a good place to work. And she said, yeah, it is. She said, I just started here, but this is where I'm going to stay. She said, I'm not making any more changes in terms of career or job. She said, I'm just way too old to make any kind of changes like that ever again. I'm here for the duration. And I said, well, you're not old. And she said, I am too. I'm almost 40. I want to I wanted to say, "Oh, shut up, you little twerp," you know. uh, I have 5 children. 4 of them are older than she is. I'm too old to make a change. I'm almost 40. There are people who age gracefully, and then there's me. I've been fighting it, denying it, and I pretty much plan to continue that. But the reality is that we are aging. Um, in my case, I'm 69 years old. I'm in my 70th year of life. It's hard for me to believe. There was a scene in a movie that I saw quite a while ago. I don't remember the name of the movie, and I don't remember anything about it except this one scene where there's 2 or 3 old fellas on a porch, and there's a young guy who's talking to the old fellas. And I don't remember anything about the dialogue except that the young fellow said, I don't know what it feels like to be old. And one of the older guys said, yes, you do. It feels exactly like you feel now. You're the same person on the inside. It's just the tent you live in. It's the exterior that changes, that's all. There was a line in the movie On Golden Pond. There I'm dating myself, huh? Katharine Hepburn says something about being middle-aged to Henry Fonda, and Henry Fonda, in his gruffness in that character that he was playing, responds, we're not middle-aged. People don't live to be 150. Someone once defined middle-aged as 20 years older than I am at the moment. We live in a youth culture in North America. We live in a culture that is all about being, acting, feeling, looking young. It's all around us. Advertising, television, everywhere we go. It's all around us. We get this message that old is finished, over the hill, you're done. Move over, get out of the way, because here come the youngsters that are full of vim and vigor. How many times have you heard someone referring to politics say, I have hope for the future because of our youth. Our youth are going to make everything better. Everything is going to be nicer because of youth. Well, I hope so. But I envy, and I think we need to emulate those African cultures, those Asian cultures, that really honor older people for their wisdom and for their experience. Indigenous cultures, Native American cultures, deeply honor the aging and aged woman or man, the elder. They are treated with great respect. And I think we need to, those of us from European backgrounds, especially here in North America, I think we need to learn from that. Not because I want people to respect me, but because it's biblical. It's the way God set things up. And there is a tremendous amount to be learned. I know of a church planting organization that they won't even touch you if you're over 50. You're too old. Adoption agencies try to adopt a child and you're, late 40s, early 50s. Forget it. Too old. I think they're making huge mistakes. I think there are people that I've run into in their 70s and 80s who would make great church planters. And I think there are people in their 60s and 70s who would make great adoptive parents. And I know lots of people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 100s who have a store of spiritual wisdom that all of us could learn so much from. So I've been thinking about aging. And of course, the scripture has a lot to say about aging. In Isaiah chapter 46, the Lord is speaking through Isaiah, and he says, listen to me, O house of Jacob, all the remnant of the house of Israel, who have been born by me before your birth, carried from the womb, even to your old age, I am he. And to gray hairs I will carry you. I have made, and I will bear. I will carry you, and I will save you. And in Psalm 71, the psalmist praised these words, O God, from my youth you have taught me, and I still proclaim your wondrous deeds. So even to old age and gray hairs, O God, do not forsake me, until I proclaim your might to another generation, your power to all those to come. Your righteousness, O God, reaches to the high heavens. You who have done great things, O God, who is like you. You will increase my greatness and comfort me again. As long as you and I are here on earth, as long as we're breathing, God has a purpose and a ministry for us. You don't retire from following God. You don't retire from serving God. Now, our ministries change. Sometimes the ministry is forced to change because of bodily ailments or overall physical health. Maybe your ministry was preparing and serving food in a soup kitchen once a week, but now you're dealing with chronic pain due to very severe arthritis, and you just can't do that anymore. So, that God understands that. I'm not saying that we have to force ourselves to do what we're physically unable to do. We need to be realistic. But what I am saying is that as long as we are alive, God wants us to be actively engaged in serving him and in getting to know him better. I was taught, um, probably you were too, it's kind of embedded in our culture. I was taught that the brain, grows and it's got this amazing complex system of neurons and neurological pathways and such, and it grows and expands up until your mid 20s or somewhere in there, and then it stops. And how many times have you heard people say, I'm you can't teach an old dog new tricks," or "I'm too old to do that," or like that 39-year-old phlebotomist that I mentioned, "I'm too old to make a change." Our physical brains are about 2% of our body weight. That brain, which is only 2% of my body weight, uses 20% of all my energy. So the brain, in order to conserve energy, always wants, your physical body, in order to conserve energy, always wants to kick that brain into neutral. Because when that brain is thinking, when that brain is exploring, when that brain is learning new things, it's using up 20% of your bodily energy. That's why it's exhausting to really concentrate and really study about any subject. It's called neuroplasticity. And you can Google it, what scientists have discovered is that the brain doesn't stop growing. Every time you push yourself to learn something new, every time you stretch intellectually, every time you struggle with something, whole new clusters of neurons and nerves and brain it is forming. You are building more brain. And the opposite is true. When you stop using it, it will atrophy. That portion of the brain will atrophy. That's why so many people can't remember the mathematics that they learned in high school. At one time, you had the neurological network in order to understand trigonometry and calculus, but you haven't used it now for many years, and so you're not able to do it anymore. That part of the brain has atrophied. So what's God calling us to? He's calling us to think, to struggle, to learn new things. Now, there are those... I forget the names exactly, but those you see them advertise, these keep your mind alert kind of game things that you can engage in. Those sort of work, but not really. When you're learning to master the game, your brain is growing and developing new neurological networks, but as soon as you have mastered it, then it stops because it's no longer a challenge. What you're really teaching your brain to do when you do those game things is you're teaching your brain to do games. But instead, if you would take on something like learning to play an instrument or learning a new language, no, you're never too old to learn to play an instrument or to learn a new language or to learn about the life cycle of frogs or whatever. God commands us to love Him with our whole heart, with our whole soul, with our entire mind. The worst thing you can do is sit down and allow the television to just numb you into a place of brain atrophy. Now, there's a big part of your body that wants to do that to conserve energy. Your body's always trying to conserve energy because your body, never knows when it's going to have to fight off a saber-toothed tiger or run away from an invading group of marauders or whatever. So your body on a physical level is always trying to zone out. That's why it's so easy to just play the same game over and over again, or binge watch Netflix, or just chill out, watch a movie. There's a place for that. My wife physically works harder than almost anybody I've ever seen. She's an avid gardener, and I've seen her be out in 90, 95 degree high humidity heat for 12, 14 hours working in her gardens. And understandably, when that day's over, there's no energy left. So, sometimes she'll just sort of sink into the sofa with a glass of ice water and see what's on the television. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the average American watches television hours and hours every day, and you're just putting your brain to sleep. I had an algebra teacher when I was in junior high school, and students, would come in and they, referring to the homework, they would say, Mr. whatever his name was, I didn't get number 3. And so he would work number 3 on the board, and we would follow along. But I remember very distinctly him saying, look, I'll do this time, but I'm not going to do it next time. I want struggle. That's what he said. I want you to struggle. Work at it. Don't just give up. Oh, this is too hard. Oh, I'm too old. No, you're not. Take on new challenges. Expand, learn, grow. And I'll be right there with you.